Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. And today, viewers, after quite a gap, we are going to talk about economics of Pakistan. It is important because in this country, everybody keeps referring back to the state of economy. And recently, we had a visit of the IMF team, and that was to actually see how the program is going and how effective the economy itself is. Today we are going to talk about that because there are many questions that are repeatedly raised by television channels and media men all the time. So today what I'm going to do is I have very accomplished panel. I'm going to actually start asking them questions. The first guest that I have is Dr. Farida Faisal, an economist. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of the program. Next to her is Dr. Manzoor Ahmed Saab, who has represented Pakistan as its ambassador at WTO. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Shakil Ramesh sits next to him, a regular on this show, almost a resident economist. Thank you very much for being part of the program as well. Dr. Sahiba, I have to start with you and I have to ask you, what do you think is the current state of economy and how effective is the IMF program so far?
I think the economy is, well, there's nothing really to be excited about.
Okay.
Neither is there anything to be disappointed about.
Right.
Maybe we were looking at long-term, restructuring, which we are not finding.
Okay.
But otherwise, the figures are, all right. I mean, the trade deficit is going down. That's good. The tax collections are, improving steadily. So these are, good indicators. Yet, your interest rate is still very high. The inflation is still very high. The fiscal deficit is still very high.
How much
so
is
these
it?
things are going to be, some things which will take their toll on the life of the average person.
Take toll or take time?
Actually, they are having a toll right now. So let us hope that as time goes by, we see more structural reform in the state-owned enterprises which are draining.
Okay.
So if this time is passing by and it is being utilized properly in order to do the restructuring, which is happening at some levels in some organizations. For example, you have examples like maybe, PIA, which is doing relatively better.
Okay.
So similarly, because a good person has been, placed at the head of the helm of affairs. So we can hope that, similar kind of people in some key positions can make a little bit of a difference.
What, 10th time lucky? Right?
No, I think overall, fiscal discipline is improving.
Improving.
Yes.
No, but we have to talk about the state of PSCs as well because that is very important. But first, let me bring in Dr. Manzoor Ahmed Saab. Your take, sir, on the economy, especially with the relationship to IMF.
Well, to a large extent, I agree with Dr. Farida.
Okay.
There's nothing really much to be excited about. Obviously, we had known it for a while. We are in a difficult situation. Inflation is still very high. The interest rate is quite high. And our maybe a little bit redeeming feature that exports are started showing some improvement.
Right.
And
Some uptick.
Some upticks. Imports are down. Normally, when imports are that down, that's a kind of a recession. But since we were facing so much of big trade deficit, maybe it's not
Especially current account deficit and all.
Yeah,
And then you had to actually
all
take
that.
care of the imports.
But still, we are not out of trouble.
Okay.
We need a lot more to do.
I live for the day when you are going to tell me that we are out of trouble.
I mean, when, now it's now 3.5% growth.
Right.
Like 2 years ago, maybe we had 5.8%. That was regional. We were getting to about regional average. And if we are so much below our regional average, although India's growth rate has come down, others, but still we are doing not really that good as the rest of us.
Is it a choice between growth and reform?
Oh, because the two things follow. once you do reforms, there's normally growth. Because
But
what
not at
happens?
the same
What's
time.
reforms? Reforms is that you're sinking in money in these state-operated enterprise. That means you're getting rid of them.
Okay.
And recently, there's a lot of news that they're trying to do something.
Right.
So the reform process has been slow, I must say. There
Okay.
was hardly any reforms in the last 1 year.
Right.
But maybe they are now picking up the pace.
Right. Your take, Shakil Rame, macroeconomic stabilization?
Look, there are 2 or 3 things which government is celebrating. First of all, they are talking about the current account deficits. They are talking about 37.6% is down. But I am worried about it. If you look at the agreement which we have did with the IMF, it's on the page 60. So they're talking about the government will phase out these all the restrictions or the other measures which is going to hamper the import bill.
Okay.
So I'm looking after 2 to 3 year time.
Can you qualify that point?
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's written in the document. So
Yeah,
the-
but can you qualify?
so
What exactly
first of all,
does
they are
it
saying
mean?
like that in a phase-wise manner,
Yeah.
we will eliminate all these barriers to imports.
Okay.
Either in the case of excise duties, either in the case of bans or something like that on consumer products, on the luxury good, everything.
Okay.
Phase-out time is 2 to 3 years.
Right.
I'm looking at the first year, so we are celebrating the current account deficit is decreasing.
So what you are
When
saying
the
is
process
that
of this phasing out will be started out,
Yeah.
will start. So
current
were the-
account deficit will increase again.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so that is written in their document, one thing. And second thing, so in the document they have written, so we will encourage government to increase revenue through taxes
Right.
and enhance investment.
Right.
We are increasing the taxes, but the investment and the economic activities are not taking a pace. That is
Okay.
a worrisome.
Right.
So when we are increasing the taxes and expanding the tax base, it's okay. But if your economic activities are not getting the pace from where you will get the revenue in the long term, especially when you are committing, we will increase more than 1 trillion, we will increase our non-tax revenue more than the 1 trillion.
So,
the
are we supposed to do something that others might be failing at? For example, it is said that the global economy is slowing down, and there are economies which are cooling off or shrinking. For example, Germany, France also. India is said to be slowing down. China is said to be slowing down. US might be actually overheating right now. So are we supposed to actually do the impossible at a time when everybody is actually cooling off? Then we have to
Look,
actually show,
we have
pick a
one
pace.
opportunity here. We have one very consolidated opportunity, like the CPEC, the investment related to the CPEC. But what we are doing, we are look at the attitude of our bureaucracy and other government officials. So look toward, they are just trying to make it difficult to implement the CPEC in this country. And this is, look.
Who is doing that? I'm sorry.
So all our machinery, the government
Why
machinery.
would you say something like that?
So look at that, the pace. We don't have the special economic zone policy yet.
Okay.
Even after 1 year of this government, after 5 years of the previous government, we don't have special economic zone policy.
Right.
We have only ordinance. The ordinance are the structures to invest in this country is like so cumbersome, so that it make literally a hell of job to complete that process.
Right.
So how you can attract the investors? And other side, if you look at the other side, look at the Iran. Iran is big way coming for the investment for China. So they have started to invest. There are different figures, but I just go to 2 or 3 figures. They have started to invest $8.5 billion in their railway and something $1.5 billion in their electricity, and there are $22 billion in different sectors of ranging a number of sectors. And what they are offering, to China, they are offering visa-free arrival for the tourists.
Okay.
They can also be included out of the businessmen.
but,
So other countries, they are also.
Shakil Sab, hang on. When you said that this government in last 1 year and the previous government in last 5 years haven't done much, this is what you are saying, right? The humble submission is, can you hold this government accountable for the performance of the previous government's 5 years as well?
No, I just hold this government responsible what they have did in the last 1 year. So we expected from them. So they must have some special economic zone policy.
Right.
They must have something in
Okay, I have
investment.
to pluck ourselves away from CPEC and I have to come back
This
to
is
the
the
fiscal
biggest
discipline.
opportunity in this country right now.
Of course,
If you want to
might
revive
be.
the economy.
I'm sure, but it happened yesterday as well. We were discussing Iran and Saudi Arabia, and somebody started talking about China, and I had to request them to come back to the topic at hand. We have to look at other aspects as well. Ma'am, when we are talking about the state of economy,
Yes.
are we close to the elusive ideal of macroeconomic stabilization?
Macroeconomic stabilization is not an ideal per se. Growth is.
Okay.
So I
No,
will
no,
have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Rame. You see, if you're not talking about growth, what use is your macroeconomic stabilization? Listen, you require it. Discipline is required. I am not against macroeconomic discipline, fiscal discipline. That's a good thing. But that needs to be now. There is a situation where you have discipline, you control, your costs, but at the same time you're not earning anything. So how is the overall the life of the average citizen going to improve? It's not, unless you have growth, and that is where the government is really not doing well. It is doing well in terms of stability, but stability is not the only objective.
Right.
The objective is growth.
Right.
And when you think
I'll
of
have
growth,
to stop it here, and I'll come back to you. I'm told that Federal Minister on Economic Affairs, Hamad Azhar, has joined us on telephone. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. The question is about the state of economy. What are the government's priorities right now, immediately?
Right. The immediate strategy last year was to stabilize, as the honorable guest at your show was saying, because we had inherited an economy that was deep in crisis. There was a $12 billion financing gap. There was a $19-20 billion current account deficit, coupled with the highest ever debt repayment and servicing need, which was $10 billion last year. So we had to meet all these requirements. Alhamdulillah, we met all those requirements. And now moving on from there, once the current account is stabilizing, the revenues are showing a healthy growth. So there is stability in the economy. We will now be moving towards the growth phase. And the target that we had set for the budget, for the growth target in the budget itself, will be easily surpassed, because we are expecting stabilization that is actually happening even before than we expected. So these are the good signs in the economy. The currency is now stable. The external account is responding very well. The foreign exchange reserves were stable last year, and this year they are actually building up now. So these are all good signs. So the economy is stable now, and it will be moving into the growth trajectory very soon.
We are moving towards that. But sir, here's the question regarding interest rates. On one side, we are talking about more business in the economy. On the other side, the interest rate stays at 13.5%. Is it not too much to expect that businessmen are going to invest in business and they are going to grow?
Well, you see, interest rates are a function of inflation. And when we talk about interest rates, as economists, we have to talk about the real interest rates. And when we talk about the real interest rates, you'll find that it is at the regional average of 4%. That is why, despite rising interest rates, we witnessed a credit offtake increase in the private sector of 11.6% in the last financial year. Because there are other determinants towards private investment, and interest rates is one of them. And when we look at interest rates, we have to look at the real interest rates. Secondly, we have to maintain positive real interest rates to encourage savings. There won't be any private investment if there is no saving in the first place. From 1992 till 2018, the savings rate in Pakistan has gone down by something like 50%, whereas our regional peers, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, have increased their savings rate at the same time. One of the reasons for that was that we failed to maintain positive real interest rates. So while in the short term you might see a spur of lending as a result of lower interest rates, but you will also be discouraging savings and you will be encouraging consumption. So if we are taking a long-term view on things, then we have to maintain positive real exchange rates. And as the inflationary pressures decrease in the economy, the interest rate will go down.
Last question before you go, sir. It is about ease of doing business. We have been hearing a lot from the government of Pakistan in the past 1 year. But what exactly are the steps that you are taking to improve the quality or to ease the business and access to business, sir?
Right. So the ease of doing business is number one on the agenda now, because we are addressing the supply side of the economy now, moving on from the demand side. And in that regard, taxes are a fundamental thing. We are simplifying taxes. Pakistan has one of the most complicated tax systems now in the world. We're not only simplifying taxes, we are reducing taxes on import stage. We are eliminating the NOCs that are required from various government agencies. And in the next 2 months, you will see some empirical data coming in as well on what we have achieved as far as the ease of doing business is concerned. We'll reveal it in a presser or in a form of presentation to the people. So the ease of doing business is it's a holistic approach. It has to do with the provinces as well. We are speaking to the provinces as well, especially where we have our government, PTS government in power, as to what the provincial government departments are doing as far as businesses is concerned. But so far, the biggest achievement is taxes. We've come up with a mobile app for taxes that has already been launched. We've automated the sales tax registration processes. We've introduced an automatic refund process. We have already cleared all pending verified refunds since 2015, and all refunds, income tax refunds that were below 100,000 rupees to help SME businesses. So these are just some of the steps that we've taken, and we'll be taking even more in the future.
Let us look forward to the data that you have mentioned that will come in a month. Hamad Azhar Saab, Minister for Economic Affairs, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for your input. Let us come back to the studio. Dr. Sahiba, you have listened to the Minister as well.
Yes.
If you want to add what you were saying, kindly resume. Then I'm going to include others.
I was talking about the growth rates.
Right.
And that it's true that the first important step was to restore the macroeconomic stability, but that cannot be the only goal.
Right.
And unless this growth rate is restored and it is brought to a reasonable level, at least to the regional level, I don't think that we are going to be able to meet any of our long-term revenue targets as well.
Okay.
And therefore, we need to look at all the various sources from which growth can be expected. And definitely China is a very important component in that. And I think that, yes, we are not paying the kind of attention which this particular opportunity can afford us.
By we, you mean government of Pakistan?
The government of Pakistan and overall.
Because I have this complaint also that the civil society and the think tanks and intellectuals, economists, they are not doing their bit either. I haven't seen any books coming from any of the economists actually focusing on special economic zones or what might be the potential.
We do our writing bit. I mean, a lot of
Columns?
discussion took place in the first phase. But I mean, it has to be now, substantial action on the ground. We need to, all the plans are there. We want to see actual performance on ground.
Right.
That is where we are lagging.
And for that, somebody has to actually come up with some yardsticks to measure progress, and that will be civil society. Unfortunately, I haven't seen that kind of progress or input from our civil society think tanks as well.
Exactly.
And this is the complaint. We keep on talking about economic zones. Have you seen any book written on the matter?
Okay, but you have to see on both sides.
Right.
Civil society and the think tanks, they're under a lot of pressure from the government.
whom?
From the government.
Okay.
From the government. Many of these non-government organizations, which are very reputed, I don't question some of the dodgy ones, but they've been asked to leave. So,
You're talking about international NGOs.
International NGOs and the local NGOs who are getting some funding on these economic issues, they've been tightened quite a bit.
Okay.
So they're not getting. So it's not just one side for.
No, but if you are, let us, for the sake
Yeah.
of argument, let us not talk about any
Yeah.
think tank.
Yeah.
If you are an intellectual who teaches, who is a
Yeah.
researcher,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
PhD,
Yeah, yeah.
shouldn't you be writing a book on it?
Well, you know, there are lots of books, but you need these think tanks also.
I
you
want to know.
they-
When I go to Shakil,
maybe
because he
this-
actually brought up the matter, I'm going to
Yeah,
ask him name a few books.
One or two points that you raised with the minister.
Yeah.
One was about ease of doing business. Okay, you know, they do this, they're welcome about this app on WhatsApp for paying this thing. But what we need is some figures that, you know, the World Bank says in Pakistan it takes four times as much time as Malaysia to pay taxes.
Okay.
And India maybe is twice as much as Sri Lanka. So we will be happy if Pakistan can match India or Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Leave about
Bangladesh?
leave about Malaysia or any of those. I'm saying just the regional countries we should be able to. Second, Pakistan's when the World Bank calculates, they say Pakistan there are 47 kinds of taxes that a businessman has to pay. In other countries, let's say example of India, they say they've consolidated them to 14. So we will see. I mean, these things are okay. You know, this WhatsApp, this apps,
App is
etc.
good.
But you know, they
More
have to
needs to be
they have to do these major things. Which can they? They can maybe the minister next time can say instead of 47, now we brought down to 30. And maybe next year we'll bring down 14, at least to India or some other thing. So unless they take those measures, I don't think ease of doing business. We are still at 137 or wherever the number.
Right.
Where, you know, we used to be in 80s, 90s, 10 years ago, and we are. And so unless we see that, you know, we are not.
You're talking about 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
You're talking about People's Party's time?
You see, we have been deteriorating from Musharraf's time.
Okay.
We have been deteriorating every year. People Party time, then furthermore.
So
But
technically 20 years, right?
yeah, almost 15 years.
Okay.
We have been going down.
Okay.
Others have been. India got into 70s.
Right.
We are into 130 something. So unless we try to,
36 this year.
136,
136.
137,
Okay. I thought you're going to challenge that number and say 36.
Yeah, 136 is 137 is same thing. So unless
Quite a
we make
solace,
it, unless we
136,
make a big improvement there, these numbers that will count.
Right.
The government should target that.
Right. But coming back to you, Shakil Rame, especially because we have had this argument before as well. Go to India. Go to their, various institutions, and you see people really pitching their story to you, right? And I don't mean merely government. I'm talking about the, private enterprises and think tanks, FICCI, others. I don't see that kind of activity coming from our side. I mean, where is our business community talking about special economic zones? Where are the reports? Where are the books? Can you identify a couple of books that might be written either on CPEC in its entire project or then special economic zones?
Look, if you talk about the books, so from my institute, we are working on a book that is in a editing phase now.
Okay.
So we are trying to do a book on that.
After 6 years of start of the project.
That's
or
what
4
I'm.
years.
That's what I
5
can
years.
ask from my institute.
Right.
One thing, and second thing, we produce a series of small policy briefs about 30-page each. So we produce a series like on that. So what is the development and governance model of China and how we can benefit in the CPEC. There is a model in like that in the eco-civilization, their expansion through the SCO. So number of things we are trying to do at our-
SCZs as well?
we discuss SCZs in a governance model. So we are bringing
Not
out,
a standalone booklet?
so not standalone book. So we confess it. The reason is, look, when you have to publish a book, you need a publisher and money for that.
Okay.
So if you're talking about as an intellectual, so
Nobody is going to publish you.
So you will not.
Are you saying that? Nobody is going to publish you.
So look at that the market. So because the book I'm talking about, I'm just sharing my experience. The book I'm talking about with you.
With due respect, I was using books as a metaphor of our interest in these subjects. When you are complaining about government, I mean, you have to look at what you have done or
So
I have
that's what I'm
done.
telling you. We have done number of things, like we produce in our short policy briefs. We are in a process to publish a book.
Okay,
But
it
it was the
wasn't-
most hardest task.
Somehow
to
it
get a
became
publisher.
about you, it
No,
wasn't.
it was the most hardest task to get a publisher for this book. They say, oh, who will read it?
Okay.
So this is the attitude. So you don't just
You could take it to PIDE, you could
So-
take it to
No, no, by the way,
OUP.
I would like to
I
give
think
you
you
a
are making a
reference.
good joke
Okay.
if you're talking about a government institution to publish a book on
okay,
this
okay.
stuff.
So this is a book by Stephen Wolf. It's named The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor of the Belt and Road Initiative, Concepts, Context and Assessment. So I mean, this gives a reference to one of my articles which I wrote on the same topic. That's how I could search it. But it has recently been published in 2019. I took a, just went over the book, I just glanced over it.
I'm glad that you're mentioning a book, but it is written by a Pakistani
No, no, no,
citizen,
no, no, no.
Pakistani citizen called Stephen Wolf, right? I mean, come on.
No.
You
I'm
get
just
my,
telling you that it is published
I know.
in Berlin. What I'm saying is that it gives reference to many of these articles which you've written, Ramisa. Your reference is there. The article which I had written in PIDE, our reference is there, but they've compiled it.
Right.
Bottom line, you're right. Our general public is not interested in this kind of literature anyway, so that's an issue.
No, but the point was that when you go to FICCI, for that matter,
Yeah.
right? What they do is inundate you with data, information. We spent hours and hours there, and there wasn't a single dull moment. When you go to your own Chamber of Commerce and Industry, anyone, Pakistan or any cities, you don't find that kind of enthusiasm coming from the business community. No, I'm
I mean,
telling you
you're
about
not
my
being
I
experience.
just want to share my experience of 2
you're
or 3
not being
days back
fair here. I'm
experience.
No, no,
sorry,
I'm
Farooq, you're
totally
not
fair.
I
being
just
fair.
want to share a 2 or 3 days back experience. We started to work on some research paper, not the book, on the research paper, the mismatch between a human capital and the requirement of CPAC.
Okay.
Till today, we are not able to get data. So we are just trying to request different university, different government institutions, every institution you can talk about. They are asking for,
Yeah.
they will sell the data.
No, before coming to this program, I agree with the data bit, because before coming to this program, I asked ma'am about Pakistan, the number of Pakistan's debt, final number, Pakistan's circular debt,
Yeah.
right? There wasn't one. So that becomes a problem, right?
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Data manipulation, that is no doubt a problem. Juggling of data to make, certain things look good, that has happened in the past.
Right.
So yes, there are many issues which are restricting really high level quality research. But more importantly than that, I think it is the action on the ground.
Right.
And it's not that the civil societies are not asking for it. It is not that your Chamber of Commerce are not asking for it. We have so many different seminars where so many different promises are made.
No,
Obviously, you
that is
see,
not the issue.
just, Farooq,
That-
people
that
in
is-
the
I
Chamber
want
of
to move
Commerce
away from this and I want
make
to talk
money.
about more
No, let
things.
me finish my thought.
Yeah.
They want to make money. Give them a good environment. Why will they not?
No, but this is the problem, my frustration. We sat in this room, Shakil, you and I, and many other people from your institution, others, and we kept on talking about CPEC from the day when it was launched to this day.
Okay.
That I don't see people, I go to business community, I meet them, and I don't see people who are even talking about CPEC, right? Although I have to come back and I have to talk about growth in the generic terms as well. And let me go to you, especially since we are talking about trade, and that is something that is of interest to you as well. You have been to WTO and all. What exactly can we do to ensure that we can export more?
Obviously, I mean, there are lots of things, but 2 or 3 things that I see as trade policy. One, we had to reform this tariff. And at the last budget, we did something. We at least that for those industries which had to pay very high rates for their raw materials. So at least for 1,600 tariff lines, or for many industries, we brought down their tariff so that it becomes more feasible to produce, because previously it was easier to rather import finished product and the raw materials and produce it here. So we did that. The next big thing would be to facilitate. I mean, the process here, the customs and clearance and port, etc. It costs about 14 to 15%. That's a lot of cost because the competition is only about 5-6%. So that is the other thing. The third big thing we have to do is that Pakistan is more or less isolated. It has to integrate its economy with the rest of the world.
Right.
You know, you look at India, their the free trade agreement with ASEAN, with this, that, you know, any country you name. Pakistan, the only thing is unilateral access from EU, just GSP plus.
GSP plus.
Otherwise, it's completely isolated. Neither in the region, it has less than 5% trade. Anywhere else, it doesn't really have any trade. So we have to integrate our economy with the rest of the
How?
world. You see, the
I
trading.
mean, India has turned its back. It brought down
No,
SARC.
India may be.
SARC to create something else.
No,
Just to get rid of us.
Yes, but within SARC, you know, India is now very close with Bangladesh, with Sri Lanka. With Bangladesh, its bilateral trade is $10 billion in
Right.
Bangladesh. With Sri Lanka, much smaller economy, $6 billion. Pakistan, it's not more, it's been happening for a while. Pakistan is two regional blocks. One is SAFTA, where we done it, and the other was this ECO, this Central Asia. Again, we have no trade at all, because whatever requirements were we committed, we didn't meet any of those things.
Okay.
But
Just
that's-
because of that, not political bottlenecks? For
Political
example, in order to reach ECO, you have to go through Afghanistan as well, right?
Yeah,
Central
all
Asia.
those problems are there, but you know, countries find some ways. For example, I give you another example. Greece had a big problem with Turkey because of Cyprus.
Right.
But you know, they said, okay, trade is something else. And both Erdogan and the Greek Prime Minister said, at least we should get to $5 billion, $10 billion. And, you know, and it's the same thing you look at anywhere else. Unfortunately, that's not the case with Pakistan.
Right. Let me bring back Shakil Rami. Why is it the case with Pakistan?
This why has a long history and a number of dimensions. If you look at that, so unfortunately we are living in a region so which has committed itself to the conflict on one thing and another thing. So the conflicts are not helping Pakistan.
And-
so on one side, so one time we
And
were
sir, I'm going to come back to you. I'm told that Dr. Waqar Masood Khan, the former finance secretary, has joined us on telephone. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. We were trying to take stock of the state of economy right now. What is your take, sir?
Well, you know, yesterday IMF folks were here and they have expressed a great deal of satisfaction. So it's kind of odd that I may be saying a few things that may not square up with their assessment. You know, in my view, the economy is suffering from an evolving recession. And that recession has to be averted. Mercifully, it would have been compounded had this Saudi supply was not quickly replaced or made up, and the prices have slided back. So we cannot afford at this stage, when already we are so tight, to face an oil price shock. The signs of recession are in, I mean, the slowing down that we see all across the automobile sector, the cement sector, and everything that is associated with cement, meaning construction, iron and steel, other building material, etc. When cement is down 6% July, August, you can imagine what would be happening to other building materials. And most importantly, in the 8 months of this calendar year, the petroleum products consumption is down by 15%. Now, this is remarkable reduction, very, very significant reduction, and would clearly mean that economic activities are slowing down. And as it happens in a recession, people's disposable incomes are declining. And when they don't the tax had an impact, and the devaluation had an impact. The car sales were down 42% in July. People
Right.
don't
Dr.
have the
Saab,
money to purchase
Dr. Saab, I'm
the car.
grateful that you actually mentioned Aramco's situation, especially the rising prices of oil, because yesterday we saw a very interesting comment from the representative of IMF who was saying that prices are going to go high, and that's why the countries that import oil have to move away from oil. So, do we have any other options right now?
Farooq, that doesn't happen overnight. We are talking almost on a daily basis how to survive. This this first quarter, then second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. Those are very important periods in which we have to perform. Now, the fund has also expressed its satisfaction over revenue performance. Well, good luck to them. If they feel that a 15% growth in 2 months is good enough to meet a target of 45% growth in revenues when economy is slowing down, all these things that I mentioned, cars and cement and petroleum products, they are revenue spinners. If these demands are down, I mean, where would you get the checks from? So we should brace for a very tight situation as it evolves. The window, in my view, was that we have missed a few days ago when the State Bank decided not to lower the interest rate. 3.25%, it's mind-boggling. How on earth can there be such a high interest rate when the average inflation today on a moving average basis is 7.5? And you say that the inflation, they have kept their forecast. The rebasing has given them room for 1.5%, and they have not acknowledged it. So if interest rate is at 13.5, you can well imagine who would borrow at these phenomenal rates. Everybody will be interested to reduce consumption and put their money into saving accounts
Saving
or
accounts, right.
in government schemes. And
Right.
government is the only borrower because
Right.
you don't care about how much debt servicing is paid.
Right.
The criteria IMF has put of the primary deficit excludes interest payments. So you can pay any amount of interest payments in the budget. IMF does
Right.
not care. And
Right.
but you know this is a demand that this is somebody else's income. This
Right.
interest payments that you will make, they'll go to the banks, they'll go to their owners,
Right.
they'll go to the depositors, and this money is not going to help the situation as far as I mean the demand that you.
Well, Dr. Saab, thank you very much. We get the picture. Let us come back to the studio. I'm told that we are left with limited time. So, resume your point, sir.
So due to the conflict, so
Which
we
kind
are
of
we are
conflict?
not quite mature that was Dr. Saab was talking about between Turkey and the Greece.
Okay.
So we can talk about like that. So the conflict are here. So we have to go for.
Who
the
is not
trade.
mature?
So, South Asian countries and especially the countries which are in the region we are living.
Okay.
So everything they want to tag everything to a single thing to everything. So they don't want to. I sometimes I feel they don't want to move as a region. So whether that hamper the,
Or they
the
want to
potential
create-
for the whole region, not only for Pakistan. This is
Or
unfortunate.
they want to create their own regions, sub-regions.
So that will not
Like
help.
India tried to do whatever
India tried to do. So what is the result? Now they're facing the slowdown in the growth.
Right.
So that is a bad strategy in the long run. If you in the short term, if you feel like that they are isolating Pakistan, so they are beating the drum. But ultimately they also have to pay the price.
Yeah, but
so there is
like they tried to deal with Pakistan, they also tried to deal with their own people by introducing demonetization, quickly introduced GST, and that might have backfired. I'm not sure that this side of integration might have actually put that kind of pressure on the economy. because the economy goes on
So the-
despite Pakistan being disconnected from it.
Every country, they have their own domestic mistakes.
Right.
Like what is happening in the US right now. They are offering the credit to the organization, even to those industries and organizations which have the bad reputation for the credit.
Okay.
So they
we
have
are
their own
back-
mistakes. They have
we
their
are, we
own
are
mis-
back in the subprime mortgaging
That is not
situation.
subprime, not a subprime. I'm talking about the industry side.
Right.
So the credit. So every country, they have their mistakes. But the issue is, until unless you are integrated, you're trying to minimize your mistakes because you have to live in that integrated market.
And at the start, I said we are going to talk about PSCs as well. And you're pretty optimistic that we are reforming them.
I think that reform process, it's a long-term process. It's restructuring does not happen overnight. You need good leadership for that, first of all. Good, honest people, and they need to be sifted through. The idea of introducing merit is the first step.
Okay.
I think that step is being taken slowly. I see some good signs.
And when you are talking about those signs, you are particularly thinking of Pakistan, PIA, right?
Not only PIA,
Okay,
other
what are we
places
doing?
also.
no,
Other places
what
also.
are
I
we
think.
What are we doing regarding Pakistan steel mills?
I mean, again, I think, well, case in point is that I think once you get good people at the helm of affairs, and the search must be going on. I don't know. I mean, I'm not privy to the inside information, but what I can just tell you is what I can see in closer to home places. That yes, performance does make a difference now, and that those who are not performing at all will either be changed. Now, this change process in itself it takes a very heavy toll. It's not efficient. That first you try one person, the person fails, then you change. I mean, I understand that that takes time, and that
No, but
takes away from efficiency.
if,
but at least it's a merit.
No,
you're
but
going
it's-
towards merit.
It's a great idea, but it is a theory which still needs to be proven, right? The problem is these enterprises are making losses every
Yes.
year, incurring humongous losses.
No doubt.
So shouldn't I be actually cutting my losses?
And trying to privatize?
Yeah.
I think they are. I think the budgets of many of the organizations have been drastically reduced, and they will have to commercialize themselves, become more efficient in the future. But that's going to take time. It
How
does
much
not
time?
happen overnight.
How much time?
I think those 5 years, I mean, I think
Sir.
should be enough.
She's
Dr.
talking about 5 years, but I was on the board of directors of Pakistan Steel about 20 years ago.
Okay.
So in between, okay, now and then we get a good person, but overall,
Yes.
whatever time we have been losing money,
Right.
and I think it's best for the government to get rid of them. The government is now trying, but first they are trying is to get rid of these very efficient energy plants, Bloki and Valley Bahadur
Right.
Shah, etc., which are giving them a lot of 17% plus profit.
Okay.
So I think somehow they should first get rid of these
Humongous bodies?
among us bodies where they're putting in money like Vietnam did. They said, okay, if you can survive on your own without any government subsidies, you're welcome. Otherwise, close. And
Right.
that's it. And that's why now Vietnam is exporting $300 billion and all that.
Right.
It's become a different country.
Right.
So we have to one day decide that if they cannot stand on their own, they have to go.
There was this idea of a holding company, if you remember Khazana model.
Didn't
That was
work.
not introduced.
Neither Khazana model worked there because you saw that $500 million going here. And here, Sarmaya, a year ago they established that board. Now the board is gone. They didn't even meet once. Now they're setting up another board. These things don't work. I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Shakil, your conclusion on this?
The thing is, we have to, what is Manzoor Sahab saying, it's a right strategy. Tell them you have to be. But the problem here it is the political parties, they keep all these state enterprises just for the political bribe. So they are offering the jobs there. If you look what happened
Why,
with the
why
PIA.
not do another thing?
So that's what I'm saying.
Give these people jobs in your own parties then.
That's what I'm saying. So that is the problem. The problem is not a state enterprise. The problem is the politics, the political parties are playing there. So
Okay.
what happened to the PIA, what happened to the steel mill?
Okay.
So there are two models. One is Chinese model. They are talking about the government control with a strict merit and the character.
Okay.
Not merit only will not serve the purpose.
So, in order
second
to
model
get,
is second
get
model
rid
is
of
first
nationalized business, we are looking at a country that usually runs business by nationalizing.
No, not you, not nationalization. They have the structure. I'm talking about one is their structure, Chinese structure, and other is a Malaysian structure. So what
Malaysian
the
is Khazanah
Mahdi did,
model.
he hired the chief executive from the private sector, from the corporate sector, and he installed them there.
Right.
Some of them were very successful. A few one they were not successful. So we
Remember-
can look for these model, innovative models.
Right, these are innovative models, but people have to be innovative as well, because otherwise we keep on talking about the same things again and again. I'm told that we have done short of time. Shakil Rami, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Manzoor Ahmed Sab, thank you very much for your time as well. Dr. Farida Faisal, thank you very much for being here. Viewers, you have listened to our participants the major questions regarding the economy. And I'm not talking about policy decisions that can be taken overnight, but since we concluded by discussing public sector enterprises, it actually takes me back to a very interesting idea that was first floated by the former chairman Senate and then by the Chief Justice of Pakistan. And that was to have a dialogue between institutions regarding these issues. If we can talk about these matters, because remember, there was a time when this country was about to get rid of steel mills, and then there was a verdict that reversed that process and totally changed the political structure of the country as well. Perhaps it is time that we take that step in the right direction by starting a dialogue that creates understanding on these matters. Without that, whatever we do might be risky and might be reversible. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.